What do you do if you feel like officers in your PTO or PTA are just like not pulling their weight? And this video was inspired by a viewer question who watched a different video and said, hey, I feel like people are not pulling their weight in my group. Like, how do you respond? What do you do? Well, those weren't her exact words, but that's how I took it. In this video, that is exactly what we're going to talk about. So if you are struggling as a president or as another kind of officer in your group, but you kind of notice that people are being a little slackerish, then this video is a good one for you to watch. If you find that the officers aren't pulling their weight, or you feel they aren't pulling their weight, I would really caution against assuming anybody is purposefully being a slacker, because the vast majority of people who sign up to or step up to be volunteers or leaders really do want to give back to their school. They really do want to do what they have been recruited to do. But sometimes life gets in the way. So every once in a while, you're going to have a situation where life just changes for somebody. Either their child gets sick, or their parent gets sick, or they themselves get sick. And that can be a lot to deal with. Or they have a death in their family. Again, can be hard to deal with, especially if it's a parent or, God forbid, a child that has passed. That can be something that is going to take them quite some time to work through their grief and kind of heal and recover. And so they just might not have the mental space or the emotional capacity to deal with PTO stuff for right now. And that's got to be okay. And sometimes people don't tell us about things. Certainly if it was a child passing, you would know, but not necessarily a parent or even grandparent or some close family relation that they are just grieving the loss of that family member. You could also have a situation where maybe somebody has to go back to work or change jobs, and the job is a little bit more than they expected, and they're just like fully underwater and need some help to get out and just don't have the time to devote to PTO anymore. Just be aware that something may have changed in their life where they're just no longer able to do what they signed up to do. No. And from my experience, when those big life changes happen, people are really not very good. On the whole, people are not good about communicating because they feel bad and they don't want to let anybody else down. So they just kind of ignore it and hope it'll go away, which it never does, because other people will notice if, the carnival doesn't happen when it's supposed to. But it's good for you to reach out with a sense of empathy. And I just want to check in and see how you're doing. And do you need help? Check. The other thing that might be going on is maybe they're not clear on their job expectations, because maybe you don't have them written down. Maybe they don't know about them. Some people are really bad about finding information. Like, it needs just to kind of be fed to them on a spoon almost. Sometimes it seems that way. And that can be frustrating if you are a real go-getter. But just, again, have that empathy. People are not as tech savvy as you think they might be. And so they might need like the exact link to their officer folder on your Google Drive. Go ahead and provide that. Do that extra step. Give them what they need. It's going to save you headache in the long run, and you won't be resentful that you feel like you are giving all of this work and time and effort to your PTO, but these other slackers aren't. That is not a good place to be. That is not being a good teammate. If you feel like they're not clear on their job expectations because just like nothing is happening, then go ahead and review those expectations with them. It's especially helpful if you yourself have been in that position, or hook them up with a different volunteer who can maybe help them, especially if they're a newbie. This can help empower them, educate them, and they'll be ready to roll. So the other thing that may have happened is there may have been a change in the circumstances that result in a required change in what they need to be handling. And I really can't think of a fantastic example other than maybe the pandemic, where you had someone, let's say they were the family events chair and they were supposed to be planning in-person events, but now they have to pivot to online stuff and they really don't know how to do that. Like, that totally could be a case why they're not doing what you kind of think they should be or expect them to. Again, that's going to be education and support, and just helping them make it happen. Other thing that could possibly be happening is that they weren't told what to do. The members who are doing the recruiting of volunteer leaders don't either understand or they kind of feel like that training will be done by somebody else. And this is a really huge downfall for all PTAs and PTOs because I definitely know that not enough training is happening. People just don't understand. There's a lot of assumptions that people think that you already know what's going on because you've been a parent at the school. So of course you've seen how things have gone on, but people are busy and they don't kind of notice. And just take that into account. They're like, again, it's all back to education and support. But then you're thinking, Christine, they know all of this and they are just like not doing it and I don't know why. Then it's time for a one-on-one conversation with them. I highly recommend just picking up the phone and calling them and just, again, using that kind of same language that I used before of, hey, I just want to check in with you to see how everything is going. They are going to let you know if they're having problems. And if you kind of feel like they're leaving things unsaid, then you can kind of push that part of the conversation forward and just say, I thought X would happen, or it was my understanding that this was going to happen, or, when you're dealing with conflict, you do want to avoid I statements. That is something you want to do, but I can't think of how to reword it without having a real life example in front of me. Keep it as non-confrontational as possible and relay that there is an expectation. Actually, I just thought of an example because I had a situation come up. Actually, I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier. Probably because my dog keeps interrupting this video. Anyway, there was this volunteer. She was actually on the board and she was a relatively new volunteer. And she signed up for a whole bunch of concessions volunteer slots and didn't show up to them and always had like a kind of a lame excuse or no contact at all. Like she said, well, my daughter wasn't playing in the game. So, which is stupid because you still come to concessions. You just don't bring your daughter. And this was a high school parent. So the daughter totally could be left at home alone. She doesn't have any reason why she couldn't be. So there's that. So I was talking with my friend who is in charge of all of the volunteers, like getting volunteers and communicating with the volunteers to let them know about cancellations or changes to the schedule. And she had said we were just having a lot of problems because this one volunteer kept like not showing up. And so I just said, you know what? I'm just going to give her a call. Actually emailed her and I said, I want to talk to you. I want to have a check-in call, again, using that same verbiage that I suggested earlier, and said, when's a good time for a call? Well, she didn't actually respond, and I let it go for a couple weeks, and then she called me kind of randomly and was like, oh, you wanted to talk to me. So I think she kind of knew she was in the doghouse, even though my email was very nice and I don't think you could have taken anything negative from that email because generally I'm pretty nice about things because I am understanding. Think about it, the whole first half of this video where I was talking about all the reasons why people could be slackers and not pulling their weight, but whatever. So anyway, this particular volunteer, I just said, how's things going? And I said, it's my understanding that you'd signed up for multiple volleyball concession slots and then you weren't able to come for whatever reason. And she said, oh, well, I let the volunteer coordinator know. And I said, well, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that there were a lot of times we didn't get any communication from you, but I just want to make clear that we are relying on you to come. And if you don't come, then it's really putting our group at a disadvantage. We're able to earn less. And it's something that just to keep in mind for going forward. And she goes, well, okay. And I think she made a couple other excuses that I was just really firm. I wasn't saying you're a total slacker, you're not doing what you need to be doing, but I kind of said that in a different way, in a much nicer way with just, I understand things come up. However, it is really important that we have communication from you because if we are not able to fully staff the concession stand, then we will close. Because it is unfair to put that burden on the people who do show up because we know how many it takes to run the stand efficiently. And if it's less than that, then that's just really unfair to the half of the crew that shows up. And so she said she understood and we left it in an okay place. I kind of told the volunteer coordinator, just like, let me know if she volunteers again and I'll give her a call. But yeah, sometimes you just have to be very direct and not accusatory. I didn't say you're being a slacker. I just said, I understand what's going on. And before when I said that, you don't want to use I statements, that I got that backwards. You want to avoid saying you statements. So I didn't say, oh, you slacker. No. Or why didn't you do this? Or you didn't do this? Or you didn't. whatever. You want to avoid you, and just take it back onto you and extend grace where necessary and give people an opportunity to gracefully exit if they should choose. So before I kind of wrap this up with my ultimate recommendations for like the big picture way to handle this situation, I want to know from you if you feel that when you were recruited into your PTO position, if the job responsibility was accurately and effectively communicated to you. Just curious to hear about that, because like I said, I feel like most people don't know what they're signing up for when they sign up for something in the PTA or PTO, but I want to hear if this is actually true. From your point of view, really you want to have an overarching sense of empathy and compassion, because people are going through things, like life happens and it's unexpected a lot of times. And so you just kind of have to deal with it on the fly and do the best that you can and make the best of it. Ultimately, you do want to be fair and very clear with your expectations on what needs to happen next. Like with that one volunteer, I feel like I was very clear, because she would give me some baloney answer and I just said, I understand, this is what we need from you going forward, or this is what needs to happen. And just didn't let her off the hook. If you keep that sense of fairness and empathy and compassion and those clarity of expectations in mind when you're communicating with volunteers who may not be doing what you think they should be doing or not pulling their weight enough, then I think that'll serve you well. And sometimes you just have to know that people aren't always recruited for a position that supports their strengths. Like sometimes there's a mismatch. And if there's a mismatch, then that's something you can recognize now and correct going forward. And then sometimes you need to give people a way to, like I said, gracefully exit. And so go ahead and watch the video. I don't know where it's going to pop up. So a card will pop up on the screen about can you fire PTO volunteers? Yes, you can. You got to do it in a nice way though. Can't be a jerk about it. So watch that video. That will give you some tips on how like dealing with difficult people. I've had to fire people before. It's not fun, but necessary. Mental sanity, health of the group, all that goodness. So go ahead and give that one a watch. I so hope this has helped you with this sticky situation, and I will see you in the next video. Want even more guidance on how to be a stronger leader so you can run a better PTO or PTA? All these resources and more are waiting for you at PTOanswers.com.